Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I will make a motion to move agenda item 5A and 5B to, where would you like to move it to?
Let's just leave it up in limbo until we get another board member.
Okay, we will address it when we have quorum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that leaves us to 16035 Hopewell Road. Mr. Chuck Rosenblum, come on down. Tell us about your project.
Well, the beautiful piece of land right there by the gates at the manor. We plan on building two nice homes there, $1 million plus homes. Right now it's got a very old structure on it that needs to be removed. It's almost inhabitable at this point. But we do plan on building two nice homes there and conforming to the homes in the manor. Actually estate homes.
Okay.
And they will be gated, private gated entrance.
What begs the question for us as a board is this. One of the things that's happened, we do not have a historical board anymore. And so a historical board would be the one that would normally listen to the historical significance of any structure. Quite frankly, we have so many structures that we don't have very many pre-1900 structures left. It would be my belief that we need to look at what could be done with this house other than tearing it down. It is, after all, it's, 106, 125 years old, and I realize that it's been renovated several times over the course of its life, and parts of it may or may not be original, and I don't know what the original part of the structure really is. But I would ask that you be willing to withdraw this from us at this point in time, because if we stay on this course, we will have to deny this demolition of this house. I would like to be able to direct city staff to be able to look at this house a little bit more in depth to see what the possibilities are and what the significance of the house really is. Because as a board, I don't know that any of us really on this board really know. And since we have so many houses that we have so few houses that are really past 1940. I don't even know that we have that many houses, but this was a fairly remote part of our state during that time period. And historical houses, as a rule, are something that we should not destroy without careful consideration to what opportunities may exist. It may be that we're able to give this house to someone that may be willing to move it and restore the house to its historical significance. And I don't have those answers, and that's something that's really got to come from staff, and we need to have more information.
Yeah, but the only thing original would be part of the chimney and partially some of the interior of the roof. Everything else has been rebuilt over the years on that house, been removed, actually.
But the real truth is we don't know that. As a board, we don't know that.
So,
all we know is an 1894 house. And I certainly can understand that it's been renovated, rebuilt, and things done to it over the years. But I think that the consideration that the staff has to have is we have to know exactly what we have with that house.
okay, is there any time frame of when I could have, because when we bought the property, of course, it was intent to, put nice homes there when we bought the property.
But did you buy it subject to this house being torn down, or did you just buy it without regard to what house is there?
It wasn't contingent, subject to the house being torn down.
Okay.
It wasn't marked as a historical home that knew of anything in that manner. So,
I feel your pain because I'm a previous builder myself, and I've dealt with historic preservation homes for years.
So,
the reality still comes down to is that somebody needs to look at this house from an unbiased position to determine what the significance of this house is in terms of age. And that means I don't know who we would have do that. I would imagine, Bob, that it would fall in your bailiwick of things.
Yeah, Angela and I. Angela has the historical background on it.
Without getting us to vote no,
okay.
I'm asking you to withdraw this and call the city architect to have somebody come up. There you go. Let's defer it.
Defer it, okay.
Defer it and get with the city architect, get with the staff, and let them come to us with a recommendation. Because you don't realize that none of us really, I can honestly say that I've never been paid to be on this board. However, we're supposed to be paid now to be on the board. But this is not about money for us on this board.
No, I understand that.
And it's not about that we know you or we know anything other than that this is an 1894 house and that we know that we should not, because we get criticized. I mean, I've been to the grocery store and criticized because I voted for something for somebody else to find that they think that I callously voted for it. And so we have to be very careful as a board and as members of our community to at least do the due diligence to know what we're telling somebody we're going to tear down.
No, I understand. I've been in real estate for 21 years in this area, so.
So you know.
I know. And the preservation of the trees, everything. So, but I guess my big question is, if who's qualified to make that determination if this house is historical or what?
Well, our city architect is, in fact, he was a state architect before this, and he'll be able to go out and look at this house, and he'll be able to help us define that.
Is there any rules or something so I'd like to know just, I guess, for my.
Yeah, we'll get together after.
Okay.
We can get together tomorrow, and I can go through everything with you and kind of look at it and see what we can do, and
Okay,
we'll let you know what we have on record and what we're trying to save.
all right.
We'll work with you on it.
Chuck, we're not trying to hold
I
you
know
up.
you're not.
I mean, if you look from our stats, everybody thinks we vote yes to whatever comes in front of us, and that's just not true. So all of us really do care as to how we're going to stick our hand up and how we're going to vote our conscience to do what we're going to do. If we were just to say, Chuck, you want to put $1 million on that lot, and that's great, tear the house down, I could care less. The truth is, I get it. I understand. But it's not about what I want. It's about what we need to do as a community.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, it definitely needs, if something were to happen to that house, was a historical home for whatever reason, it definitely needs to be, something needs to be done to the house because it's in not even inhabitable condition right now. It's had water leaks in it over the years. I think they had over 1 million gallons of water about 5 years ago leaked through that house. They didn't know it at the time. There was nobody living in
Well,
it.
the city of Marietta held me up on a house that I bought the same way you bought this lot. And they took me to court, and I stayed in court for 1.5 years, and I ultimately ended up having to move the house. And it was for an 800 square foot, 1890-something house. And it was only 800 square feet, 4 rooms, and no bathroom. So
Understand.
when you start talking about this stuff, the people that love historic preservation stuff, they will get in an absolute tizzy over the fact that we did not do due diligence. And we just ask you for the patience to let us do our due diligence.
Understandable.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
So can we make a motion to defer?
One thing I might add too is that Mark Law might ought to look at some of these trees.
I agree.
That'll come back to us for the next.
Right. I thought I saw Mark Law walk in just a
He's
minute
right
ago.
there.
Mark, can you get with Bob over this house at 16035, and let's do at least a preliminary look at the tree plan. And if Chuck already has a set of building plans for the houses he intends to put on it, then get Chuck with you to see where the placement of these houses are and how they'd affect the trees. And because we're going to have to know all that information before we can
Did you
really
see
move
this
forward.
tree saver plan I spent some good money on already? And it's one of your arborists. I think you recommended the arborist that did this tree.
The real Chuck, if Mark's happy, I'm happy. So
Right here.
And I believe you were recommended this tree saver, this arborist that
There's quite a few.
trying to find.
Yes, I have visited the site, and he did have trees located on there. He does, he will have trees saved around the areas, if the demo is approved, we'll have tree saved around those demo trees. And we'll try to work future housing around those existing trees.
Oh, yeah.
And so in the future, when it comes back to us, the state of command is if you do get the permission to tear this house down, you've got to locate the septic tank, any wells, make sure they're
It's all on
secure.
the site plan.
Yep.
All there right now.
Clean it all up
We're gonna
would
fill
be
that
the
in.
request.
So you're going to subdivide the lot?
Yes, sir. And the houses are going to be pushed back. Those trees, we bought those lots because of those trees. We weren't planning on tearing those trees down.
Good. Well, hopefully I appreciate you being so great about dealing with us and understand that we're just trying to do the right thing.
Give me a call tomorrow.
So, make a motion to
We'll set
defer?
something up.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to defer 16035 Hopewell Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chuck, get a hold of Bob. Hey, Rich, how are you? Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can go back to the original two, which is, the first one's going to be 1960 Bethany Way.
And I'll need to recuse myself for these two because I'm involved in these two projects. These first two.
I find where I put them.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rodney Wood. I'm representing Capstone Building Group. Steve has the joy of being in Europe right now on a trip. So what can I answer for you guys?
How did I lose? Oh, there they are, right there. Let's go. You're getting pretty fancy.
Yeah.
1960 brick ranch, right? Or ranch. So it's my understanding Tim's designing the house they're going to go back on this site. Question's still got to be the same things I've said to everybody else is septic tank, pool, all that stuff. If you demo it, that stuff has to be filled, covered.
Of course.
Make sure it's safe. Can't leave it unsightly while you're waiting to do your new construction. Does the city staff have any comment about this house?
No. And just to reiterate your last comment, that for the time frame between when you're building the new one and you're taking the old one down, we do like the site to look clean, without debris and grass and things like that, so that it doesn't look unsightly.
So when you tear a house down, we do not want to drive from the road and be able to see that the house was torn down. So in this case, you don't see the house from the road. I forgot on the last thing to ask if there was any public comment. So if y'all will forgive me, I'll ask now if we have any public comment about this building. Do we have any further staff comment?
No.
Any comment from the board? Would anyone like to motion to approve the demo of this?
Make a motion to approve 1960 Bethany Way is submitted.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good to go.
Thank you.
So you come for two in one shot?
My first time.
We need to be giving you a hard time.
Thank you, but no.
Okay, next one is 13092 Bethany Road. Do you know, I know this house. This is Barbara Cox's house. Or it was Barbara Cox's house. Other than it being big and being cedar and a beautiful lot, it has no redeeming value in my opinion. It is a 1978 built contemporary. And I've been in every room in this house. And I live just 3 doors down, so I'll be over there driving my Gator and look at what you're doing.
We'll make sure that it's kept nice and clean.
That's how I take my grandchildren for a ride down that way over there.
It is a pretty lot.
It is. You got lots of deer over there. And the turkeys, they like us. Any public comment about Barbara Cox's old house? Any staff comment? Are you going to fill in the pool or are you going to leave the pool? Is the pool going to be part of the, are you going to leave that pool, Tim? Are y'all working that in? Be keeping the pool? Okay. So you secure a fence to the pool at the time that you do the demo. So you got to put a fence up around the pool, keep mosquitoes out of the pool. You'll have to find the septic tank to this property, which I'm sure you've already done. Fill the septic tank down. I don't know if there's any wells on this property, but verify there are no wells. This property cannot be seen from the road, but the same comment holds true. Do not leave any debris, do not leave anything that can harm any children, and make sure it's clean. Okay? You want to make a motion? You're doing good.
Thank you. I will make a motion to approve 13092 Bethany Road.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Tim, you may step back up. Number 6, final reviews. Our first one is The Wonderful World of Chick-fil-A.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Anderson. I'm from Interplan here on behalf of Chick-fil-A. We revised our plans, our elevations for our discussion a month ago. We've updated the canopy over the menu boards per your direction. We've also modified the site plan to
Traffic pattern.
can reconfigure the driveway so that it's a exit only and there's no longer come in at that southeast corner. I believe we have staff support, and I hope you can approve our plans tonight.
It is my understanding that you complied with everything that we asked for in the last meeting.
I
Is
believe
that
so, yes.
correct, Bob?
That is correct. I met with the applicant. We revised the windows on the rear elevation. We put the little tie backs on the canopies over the doors. We redid the canopy over the drive-through and connected it to the building and made it match the building. And we revamped the entire site plan to incorporate the board's comments as far as ingress and egress and internal circulation. And we're in full support of it at this point. I mean,
Right.
he's complied with everything that we've asked for, so.
If we approve this, can we get you to agree to build a Chick-fil-A at the silos over here?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to that.
I'm really upset about driving all the way to Windward for my Chick-fil-A ice cream.
I'll put in a good word for you.
Okay, good deal. I would like to make a motion to approve it as presented.
Do you want to ask for public comment first?
We have-
Oh, wait a minute, sorry. Any public comment? We did address the problems of the drive-through, so that was our big complaint thing. So he did everything he was asked to do. You got any comment?
No, just make sure there's no public comment.
We have no yellow cards. I'm sorry, we have no yellow cards on them.
Okay.
Pardon me?
We have no yellow
No yellow
cards on this
cards.
matter.
Okay. Then I would like to make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go in peace, Chick-fil-A. Okay. The famous sales trailer for Edgemont on Main. Come on, Jerry.
May need some help here with my,
Is this the lot right about across from Campbell Tire? That we worked on, with it's got the retention pond on the left-hand side?
Big lots.
Pardon me?
Right there.
5 big lots, yeah. Okay.
Good afternoon, I'm Bill Schmidt. My address is 9915 Bice Road, Alpharetta. Trying to get hooked up here.
Technical issues.
How's that?
There we go.
Looks good.
Do you need help, Angela? I'll come down. Had it up.
How do I slides? Just as I go through, I have.
Don't you have the mouse there, doesn't it just go through? You just hit the arrows. Yeah,
This one?
Okay.
What is this in Word?
Yeah.
This is in Word.
Oh,
This
it's
is not a
in Word?
PowerPoint.
it's not PowerPoint?
Oh, okay.
Somebody put it on my drive for me. Maybe, will it just open it up? No, no. All right, let me try this. Yeah, here we go. Yeah,
You got it, otherwise-
got it. We're good. We would, I'm with Cal Atlantic Homes, and we're building the 18 townhomes over on Highway 9. And we would like to get started out there. Our plat is up for, in front of the board this month, so we hope to start construction out there soon. But we'd like to put a sales trailer on site and start selling. So we're requesting a sales trailer on lots 3 and 4, which would be along Highway 9. Darn it.
To the left, you'll open it. There you go.
Okay.
You're good.
Now, how do I get to, shoot.
You don't, you look for the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
In Word.
Hey, Jerry.
You got it.
Yeah, here you go. Here's the guy that did it. Okay, I apologize.
Thank you.
Okay.
There we go.
Are we driving me insane?
There we go. I'm sorry, I'm technically challenged. Here's the landscape plan and site plan. We're going to have a handicap parking space and 3 parking spaces. And then the sales trailer is 12 by 52. It's going to sit on those 2 lots, and it'll be heavily landscaped. And it'll be temporary. It's there for 5 months. And we will remove it as soon as our model gets open.
Okay, any comment from staff?
Yes. Yes, I met with this applicant, and we went through this, this proposed sales trailer, and they did conform to all our comments, some of which are that we made the entrance and the face of the trailer, the nice portion of the trailer face Highway 9. So when you park, you have to sort of walk around and get to it, to the front.
Okay.
Otherwise, the back of the trailer would be facing Highway 9. I think it's even going to be better for sales. We've incorporated a full landscape plan to help it out and soften the look of the trailer for the 5-month period, which the applicants agreed to keep it for a limited amount of time until they get one of the houses built where they can then convert it over to a model. So it's only for a short period of time. We've incorporated a skirt around the base of the trailer, and they've agreed to put an awning or a gable end, like some sort of a covered entrance over the entrance area. So as you can see from the landscape plan, we've really incorporated it into it, and we put a ramp in there, which is required by the ADA, and it's right on the entrance when you're coming in. So there'll be 2 more units, another duplex that's built on the Highway 9 side, and then this one, and then the rest of the 18 are internal.
Okay.
I'm good, Angela. This new landscape plan addressed what I was going to address.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything on this, and the applicant's willing to incorporate all our comments that
Okay.
Normally the board would request.
Okay.
So I think we've captured all of the things that this board typically asks an applicant to do with a sales trailer.
Any comment from the board? Is there public comment as it relates to the sales trailer to be
Hey, Bob, what, the steps and the ramp coming up, there's not going to be any metal on those, correct?
It was, but we can make it wood if that's what we need to do.
Are they just the aluminum?
Not like that, though, right? I mean, is that what you were going to put out?
No.
I mean, that's what he's,
That's the back of the trailer. sir.
okay.
It actually is a ramp, but we can do it out of wood.
Yeah, it was my understanding we were going to do wood, and we were going to stain the wood, so it doesn't look like
Okay.
raw,
Yeah, we'll
pressure
make it
treated.
look
So
nice.
like that.
So it's going to be nice, yeah.
Okay. Any public comment? That being said, can I get someone to make a motion to approve the sales trailer?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve Edgemont on Main sales trailer.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go in peace, my friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
No. I'm trying to stay on task. My wife told me I had to stay on task. Pike Nursery.
Angela, do you have any papers?
I'm Jeff Lohman with Piper O'Brien Her Architects at 3000 Royal Boulevard South in Alpharetta. You have seen this building before. We had gotten DRB approval. Since that time, we prepared a set of construction documents. The owner has had it bid by several contractors. Unfortunately, we were way over their budget. So what we're here tonight to do is to show you our proposed value engineering options, some of which affect the exterior of the building. So what I wanted to do, we provided you with a package of 8.5 by 11 images. I was just going to run through the bullet points just to highlight those things that have changed since the last time you saw the building. I'm going to start with the site plan. The greenhouse structures themselves have been reduced in their size. Primarily off of this end of the building, there was about 42 feet of greenhouse structure eliminated. In addition to this area here, has now become outdoor display area in lieu of the covered greenhouse area. So there was a substantial quantity of greenhouse structure just eliminated from the project. The overall screening of the greenhouse structure pretty much stays the same as we had it before. The only difference is we had brick columns every 24 feet. We've since converted those, we've taken the brick off and created clapboard siding on the columns instead. It still has the steel grid that does the screening of the structure. We just stripped the brick and changed it to clapboard siding. The canopy that is facing Highway 9, or that wall basically, we eliminated a section of the green sloped roof that was running into the canopy that's in the middle of the building there. The green roof, sloped roof, still is on the parking lot side. It just terminates right there at the corner. We also took the brick canopy that's in the middle and pushed it back into the building somewhat. It was sticking out about 6 feet in order to receive that other slope canopy, but since we removed that, we pushed the structure in, again, to save a little bit on money. The tower itself remains in terms of the size of the tower, the height, and the width. We eliminated 2 brick wing walls that were flanking either side of the tower. Those have been removed. The tower itself also, we removed some of the stonework and replaced it with stonework and ephes, and replaced it with clapboard siding. But the overall height, like I said, the size of the tower stays the same. The front canopy, the entrance canopy from the parking lot side, what we did is we initially had 3 brick columns basically framing the 2 entrance doors. What we did is we eliminated the central column there, so we ended up with just 2 columns on either side of the entry, and we added in some more of the wood posts that we had as part of the slope roof on either side. I know that in our previous reviews, it was suggested that we try to, add in some more wood, so that we took the opportunity to do this at this point in time. So that kind of opens up the entrance there. We also added clapboard siding above that area where there used to be ephes, again, just to kind of keep the trend going of clapboard siding. Also, for the slope metal roofs, we had a brick base at the wooden columns. The brick base came up to the level of the stone there. We went ahead and eliminated those brick bases. So we still have the same canopy column, same spacing, just eliminated the bases off of them. We went through and revised the site lighting. That's not shown on any of these. We initially had a total of 14 poles. We were able to still maintain the city's minimum foot candle levels with 11 poles. Same, city-approved pole. We haven't changed any of that. We just changed the quantity of them. The upper story glass that you see there, originally we were proposing that to be spandrel glass. We're going to leave that as vision glass. There was also in the outdoor display area a very long green wooden arbor. We've eliminated that as well. That falls inside the gated area. Also, the outdoor display area had numerous brick columns in between, or we had the metal fence in between the brick columns that kind of outlined the area of the outdoor display area. We eliminated more than half of the brick columns. We've maintained the same fence and all. We've just tried to eliminate the brick columns and the light fixtures that were associated with them. And that is it as far as what you can see from the outside of the building.
So for the green area on the outside, there are no longer going to be any more columns in that area. It's just going to be fencing.
There's still columns there, just not as many.
Okay, so does the drawing that you have depict the true number of columns? It does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me.
Bob, here's my concern. I'll be quite honest. I kind of feel like I'm getting a loop here. I really would prefer, because this is up our area, I want to see what we had before and what we're changing. There's a couple things that concern me in here from visibility, and I really would like to see that. I can't really vote on this until I see there's some extensive changes here, really. And I cannot vote on anything, particularly because it impacts our area, until I have a good handle on what we're changing here. I mean, I really wish I would have had that prior to the meeting to understand, here's what we had, here's what we're changing, here's what the differences are. It's really hard for me on a black and white to really see, from the street what that's really going to look like. I mean, because I think we work quite a bit with the applicant to try and get this right. And I get it from a cost perspective. I mean, I'm in business. I understand that. I just want to make sure that whatever those tweaks are, that we don't impede the view of that area.
Okay. Yes,
The question I would have for you-
Angela just stepped out to get you the copy of the original. Now, I will say that the applicant came in, we worked hard on the first one, the budget came in over, and that's not something that's abnormal in today's economic times, that pricing is going up. So the applicant came back in and explained to me that they're way over budget, but they wanted to maintain the original design intent and all the features of the building that were originally approved by the board. So we worked very hard, hand in hand with the design team and the owner, making tough decisions here, to how do we maintain the original look and character of the building and all the elements that the board had approved, while maintaining a value engineering analysis to save them some cost. So all the features that you're seeing, what we've done is that they've taken some areas of brick out and replaced it with some siding. The mass of the building is the same, except for the one awning that he took off in the front. The awning used to wrap in the front. It was a non-functional awning, so I didn't think it was anything that would impede on the operation of the building, because those awnings are just visual. They're not really part of any covered sidewalk or anything. They're just really there to break up the facade and give it some
Do you feel like that this rendition they've given us now meets the intent?
I do. I work very hard back and forth with them to maintain all the original mass and character and detail and all the elements while cutting all the costs. So everything is a very subtle change. We might have reduced the number of columns. We've reduced the brick piers on the bottom of some of the wood columns, things that you could really take out but wouldn't destroy the character at all.
Okay.
And but the overall mass and feel of the building is the same. We've reduced the size of the greenhouse in the back, but we kept the screen wall up so that you wouldn't see the back of the building at all. So they still maintain the architectural character of the screen wall, which is along the new future Bethany Bend right-of-way, so that we were pretty hard to make sure, we really worked hard to make sure that the owner and the design team didn't eliminate any of the original intent that this board wanted to maintain the character of the Highway 9
And Bob, that may not
architecture.
be an issue. It's just hard to visualize something that we looked at 2 or
Yes.
3 months ago.
Yeah,
It
you
would
should
have
have
been
had,
nice to see, here's a
you
before
should
and
have had the
after,
original
side
one.
by
I
side. so
agree
we
that it would have been nice to look at it.
Yeah, and the other, Mike Stevens isn't here, and he also is representative of our area, so he had a lot of comments on this initially, and I kind of feel like
He needs to be here, though.
well, there's probably a reason he wasn't here for a business reason, so.
But if you look at it, staff really worked hard to ensure that it
Yeah, I just can't. We need to-
eliminate any of the
I
architectural
can't vote on this
features
right
of the
now.
exterior of the building.
Well, my personal sentiment is that if in fact you believe as a city architect that it has met the intent and that we are not really giving up a whole lot other than,
Wait, you're not speaking for me.
the problem comes down to that people have to build what we suggest, and the cost is always a factor. And if we can help them become a community, part of our community, and do so where they can afford to have this building here, if it doesn't harm the public, and Mark, are you okay with the landscape plan, the way it's going to look on Highway 9?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, well, Marty, my comment is, I represent a specific area. We're different than this area, and it needs to conform to what our area is looking to move to. We had this problem before with another project, and I don't want to go through this again. Okay,
I
so.
agree, Laura, but I will tell you that we worked very hard with the design team and the owner.
I understand that, but I'm the one who gets the calls, okay, when things don't go right. So I would have appreciated if I would have gotten a call to look at this before we came here tonight. I would have liked to look at it, ask the applicant questions. I think that would have been fair. to get here, and that wasn't on the agenda. Had I saw that on the agenda, I think I would have spent some time with it. I've had no time to look at this, so I really can't vote on this. I mean, to be quite honest. And I wouldn't vote for it right now until I understand. And that doesn't mean that you didn't work hard. I know you do, Bob. But I just think, future planning, when we have this, if you could warn us, that would be helpful on this. I mean, because I really do need to spend some time with it to make sure and get all my questions asked. I wouldn't be doing my job here as a volunteer if I didn't.
So setbacks, all those things are all the same. The thing that we've given up is some columns, some light poles, some facade on the building. Is that pretty much the summary?
Looks like all the trees are gone in here, too.
Where's the original plan?
Right over there.
Is the trees left out on purpose, or is that just
They
an
were
overlook?
left out on purpose so you can see the building better.
But that doesn't mean you won't put the trees in.
The landscape plan has not changed at all.
Okay.
That's significantly different.
I'm just curious, how did you go from 2 air conditioning units from 4?
Because this is the actual design versus an estimated design at the time.
Okay.
We've now done the drawing, so we know what we have.
They've essentially taken out, Laura, it looks like the first greenhouse. They've shortened it to probably, it looks to me like it's about probably 30 feet, 40 feet long. And it was all the way the distance. So they've offered more green space in terms of outdoor planning.
Right.
Took
they
that
took-
arbor off.
Yeah, and I think having a bunch of, I think it was better this was pushed back because I don't think we don't want to see a bunch of display stuff on the front of the road. Because I've seen that before, that doesn't look good. I know what it looks like. So I have a concern about that, definitely.
My frustration comes with stuff like this is that, we're sitting down and trying to dictate what the taste and what we personally like. And the reality is if they conform to what's been requested, I don't see how we can just arbitrarily, because we don't like something, vote against it.
Well,
Or-
it's not what I like. It's what people will see from the road. It's not me.
I know, but it's Pike Nurseries. And Pike Nurseries, they got outdoor
Well,
plants.
frankly, there are people who don't want that there. Okay, I'm trying to be, meet in the middle for a lot of people who didn't want it. So
I mean, you and I are good friends, and we know each other pretty well. And my feeling is if they wanted something different, they should have bought the dirt. So it's a commercial zone piece of property. If it meets the setbacks and the building's not an ugly building, then they have substantially conformed with what they planned. And originally when they came to us, this was a process of them coming to us, coming up with something we would like, them going back and designing, and then once they designed it, they had to figure out what it cost to build it. Once they got to the design, finished the design part, the cost to build it.
I get it, Marty. I'm in business. I get it. I go through this process myself. I own a company, so I get it.
I know, but I'm saying respectfully, how long do we delay these folks if at the end of the day that
Well, respectfully, I should have been asked to look at it. Okay, so let's be respectful here. Prior to me coming to this meeting and spending my time, I could have looked at this, and then I could have had a list of questions, and then we could have taken a vote. I cannot take a vote until I look at this, and I do have some concerns over it. There's a couple of things I see that I got issues with.
they like?
So I'm just telling you. I mean, go ahead and vote, but I'm voting no. So
Okay, I mean,
feel
just
free.
tell me what you don't like, because obviously.
I just told you what I have a concern with the display being moved up because that gets too close to the street, and people will complain about that.
Let me just make sure I understand what.
Mike Chapman, 2200 East Route 66, Glendora, California. We actually shortened the greenhouses, so we've taken more visibility away from the street, whereas we maintained the screening wall that you guys are requesting to meet the form-based code. That remained, and we shortened the greenhouse, so I don't understand where
Well,
you're...
no, here's the issue. So here's the old design. So you had this barrier of an arbor here, okay, before you get to the back where you've got open storage. Well, now we're changing that. We're pushing that up much closer where that's going to be pretty visible. And I know that look from other stores. I shop at Pike's, so I am a customer. I just don't think that look works for where we're at, so.
I still don't... May I walk up? May I approach? And you
Sure,
tell me what you're talking
absolutely.
about? I'm not following.
If these are correct, I mean, this is what.
But
she
that
gave
arbor's
me.
on the side of the building.
The arbor's on the side, on the parking lot side,
Right,
which has
that's-
visibility to Highway 9.
Right, oh, yes, that'll be visible. Sure it will. This whole area will be visible from the road. So before you've got this visibility, now,
But as far as the form-based code is concerned, it doesn't require that we do any screening on that side of our property, because it's facing the
You'll
parking
have
lot.
trees right here too.
Yeah, and we'll have landscaping all across the front.
well,
So let me ask you this. One of the things we have to have line of sight for getting on and off of Highway 9. But given that, can we accommodate to try to focus some of this to buy trees that are planted, like, for example, if you had a fairly good-sized tree right here, and you put a fairly good-sized tree back
no,
right
that
in
had
here?
nothing to do with this. This is the display area.
I know, but what I'm trying to say, though, is this
Oh,
is your
you're
Highway
saying to
9.
screen it.
And I'm saying screen it with vegetation. You don't want to take and obstruct their visibility of the sign. But if you put a
No, I don't
good-sized
wanna
tree, if you put a
obstruct the
good-sized
sign.
tree there, and you put a really good-sized tree right here that's fairly mature, this is going to obstruct that view that you have from that area.
Keep in mind, there's trees right here already, right?
Yes, there is.
How much space are we talking about from here to here, feet-wise?
I'm going to tell you, it's 350 feet.
No, there will be no trees anymore. You're pretty much taking all that lot now.
But the
There's an
lot
animal
next
hospital
door.
next to it.
No, there's an empty lot between us and the animal hospital.
Okay.
That belongs to Fabric.
So, but my point I'm trying to make is that it's like line of sight. So when you take and you sit in your car and your eyesight vision is at 40 inches, let's say. So your line of sight of vision is 40 inches. So when you're driving down Highway 9, if you were to take a straight line from your eyeballs to where you're going to go, what can you do to help improve what you want? And what I'm trying to say is you can do it with a combination of taller trees and smaller shrubbery that's underneath it. You will never see this.
That's fine. So here's the issue. I would like to have, it would have been great if I had time to go through this and say, okay, why are we doing this? Can we do this? Can we do that? I don't have the time.
It is.
So
This is the first
you're
time that
asking
we
me to
see it.
vote on something blind, and I'm not going to do it. That's just the story. So you feel free to vote and do it, but I won't.
Okay. I don't want to.
And I want to be on record.
That's fine. I got no problems with that. So, from my perspective, Mark, can we work with Pikes to come up with some screening, some plants that would be screening trees for that area? I don't want to take and mess up the right line of sight to get on and off of Highway 9. But as you're driving down Highway 9, the line of sight to be able to take and block that view of that green area, would you be willing to work with Pike Nurseries and Bob to come with something that would accommodate?
It'd be like marquee trees against each of the
Yeah.
the
I mean,
pillars of the front gate.
like I planted Leland so nobody could see my
I
barn.
just think there's changes here that really have made major
Laura?
changes, so.
So now that you have the original, would you like him to go through the changes again so you can compare them? I mean, since we have them here now?
Well, I mean, I think I can pretty much see some of the changes. I mean, I'm looking at them right here. So,
See, for Laura, from my perspective, the fact that they took this greenhouse out, I like that idea better than I like the greenhouse going all the way down. Because they're going to plant trees, they're going to put trees here.
yeah, I mean,
and
that's.
the trees are going to look better.
I have no issue with that. I'm more the look on the front.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that I think we can accommodate that with having a meeting between you, Mark, and the builder in terms of the landscape plan to be able to handle what you want to do.
That's fine.
Would that be helpful?
I do think, I don't like that this was taken out because I think that adds to the character on the front. It just looks cut off there, so.
You're
that's-
talking about this,
She's talking about
this awning that's right
Yeah.
here?
right here.
Yeah,
wrapping
I just-
Let me ask you guys, you wanted to wrap it all the way around?
This awning right here that you cut off at the end, originally y'all had it wrapped around.
That's correct.
It went nowhere, and it would,
I know,
it
but
would draw
aesthetically-
customers down to a dead end, so it made no sense to us, so it seemed logical to take off.
So here's my request. My request would be is to let's do that. If you're not going to bring it around, let's do some sort of landscaping on that side to where it looks really good.
And if you don't like the way it's chopped off on the end, just at a 45, we could wrap the angle around to the end.
Yeah, that just looks weird. It just.
Yeah, it would
It
probably
look-
look
it
better
looks
if you
odd.
brought it around
We could turn
at
it.
least.
We could turn it so that the green
Okay.
faces
They brought
Highway
it
9.
around and
Right.
at least just cut it off
That's fine.
there. It
Yeah,
would
I mean,
not look like a
It
stub.
would just add a return to it, basically.
Right.
yep, yeah, instead of.
So we're just trying to
cutting it off.
address the minimal problems that we have.
And would you
So-
do that on the east side of it as well? On the east side of the building where you've got both of
You'd
them
have
that are
to do
just
both.
Yeah,
sliced off?
that's fine. That's
Okay?
fine. So we just add a return to the left and right flanking
Yeah.
sides.
And the next question would be is to get with Mark Law and to do landscaping so we can minimize the view shed from the landscaping that you got behind it.
If you guys will notice too, we changed some of the parking there at the entry of Highway 9 to compact spaces and gave us more green space between parking and Highway 9, so that will give us more space to landscape too.
Good.
So it'll help us accomplish what you were mentioning. The other thing that we didn't touch on, we eliminated a lot of the asphalt in the outdoor display area and added gravel beds, so we
Okay,
have
good.
less, some more impermeable space, more
You have more pervious.
more pervious space, so it helps us with water detention as well.
You know, they preach about the pervious concrete that you make driveways out of. So I was one of the first builders to use that product. And 15 years later, I'm having people calling me up and asking me why I use such crappy concrete.
We looked at that as an option too.
So another question I have too, on the old plan, now where you've pushed out the arbor, what is the, what's the material being used for cordoning off that area, the fencing?
That didn't change.
Is it the same?
It's the same.
They did not.
It's hard.
The only thing they did was on the fencing is they took down the total number of columns. How many columns did you remove?
Yeah, that's fine.
It was probably
It's half of
at
them.
least half of them.
Okay.
That's not,
That
that's
doesn't
not-
bother us.
That's not an issue.
And if you guys are fine with it, we'll remove all of the brick columns. It doesn't matter to us.
I personally like the brick columns, but,
We'll still maintain
So
the
keep
color
a few.
baskets on top of the poles either way.
right. You know, it's so difficult at times for all of us to do this because one man's great taste of something is another man's disdain. But
Exactly.
so we don't want to sit there and be the Nazis of design because we're not that. You know, it's
On the west side of the building facing Highway 9 in the center, there was a Pike Nursery sign above the windows, is that?
Right, we're only allowed one sign per
Okay.
frontage, so we put it on the tower.
On the tower instead.
Gotcha.
So the lettering goes away.
Okay.
okay.
We worked really closely with Bob, and they were great to work with us. We actually feel like we're more in keeping with the Milton look by adding all the clapboard, adding more wood, things of that nature, things that we, as Pike, typically don't use material-wise because of a maintenance standpoint, but it's in more keeping with the look and feel of the area.
What about the sidewalk? Well, I thought we had a sidewalk. Yeah, didn't we talk about a sidewalk?
They still have a 10-foot sidewalk in front of the building?
Okay,
It's
So-
it's part of the
It's not
trail?
shown on this.
okay.
It's not
Sidewalks
shown
being
on
my
there,
pet peeve as well. So
but- Yeah.
what I
well,
want to know
We still have a
is,
10-foot sidewalk, and then it just gets reduced a little bit in front of where the right-of-way is going to be, but we did make the connection all the way to the gas station, so.
Okay.
is GDOT going to tear down the sidewalk in the next 24
No,
months?
not the 10-foot sidewalk is in the location that it should be.
Oh, yeah.
We're building at the future grade.
In the
Building at the future
permanent
grade, we're
location.
Good, that
incorporating it
answers my
all in there,
question.
so none of
I
that.
just didn't
will
want
have to
Pike
be-
Nurseries or anybody to build a sidewalk that somebody's going to tear up.
Right.
Everything with this piece of property, we're trying to do to the future changes so
Okay.
that it's not torn up. We don't want to waste time and money.
Okay. Laura, do you have any more questions?
Not right now. I just need to look at it some more, so. Maybe if we can move this down, that would be great, because I'm not prepared to vote on this. I really need to look at
Are you
this,
okay with this or?
so.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve this as presented with the stipulation that the builder is to get with Mark Law and our city architect to come up with the screening that would be landscape screening between the buildings, so we can effectively take this line of sight.
In the corners of
And add the cornings to the two, Rappy corners,
returns.
the returns. Anybody want a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. There you go.
Nay,
Thank you.
on the record.
Number 7, courtesy reviews, 115 Hoolan Way, Vance, Dover. Ask, are you going to let us come swim if we,
You sure can. I wish I were Vance. Vance is out of town. My husband is driving my son to a medical residency in California, so I'm Jane Mahler. I'm one of the owners.
okay.
Bob asked me to do 2 things. He asked me to bring 2 letters that are from our neighbors saying that they know about us going 6 feet into the 75-foot variance to build a pool. And I have those two letters. And then I also have pictures of what would it look like from the pool into our neighbors' yards.
Mark, have you looked at this?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
As long as they're staying out of the stream buffer, and no specimen trees out there, so there's no issue here.
And your opinion is it's okay?
My opinion, yes.
Okay. Bob, if you had an opportunity to look at this? Do you have any questions or
I
comments?
don't?
So it's your pool deck that's going actually into this,
Actually, there is not going to be a pool deck. I don't know why they put that in there. There's going to be a patio by the house, and it's just going to be the edge of the pool.
okay.
The deck is not, like I said, it's going to be just 6 feet. It's only 1/3 the pool that's going to be going into the variance. It's going to be horizontally against the creek instead of vertically.
So your neighbor that is behind this pool, they have
There
given,
is no actually neighbor directly behind it.
who owns that
It's
land?
a-
Do you know?
The lot is such that when you look back, there's the neighbor that's to the left, most of his lot is actually to his side.
Okay.
And so the lot there is no house right directly in back of it.
Where I'm trying to go with this is that without regard to whether there's actually a house on the lot that is behind you, behind where the pool is going to be, that could be developed at some point in
Actually,
time.
no, that's actually part of the neighbor's yard.
Oh, it is? Okay, and he's okay with it?
Yes.
Okay, then that answers my question. Do we have any question from the public? Do we have any questions from the board? Bob, do you have any problems with us going, and it's the radius that's going 6 feet in, so it's not like it's all 6 feet.
That's correct.
So The reality is it's probably half the square footage of the 6 feet.
It is.
Okay.
I was okay with it, and, but it's a variance, so this board's making recommendations to the BZA. So if anybody has any recommendations, we can certainly get them.
Well, unless we have comment from other members of the board, I have no issues with it as long as it meets with staff approval for this variance. Any other comment about? Okay.
Thank you.
Go in peace.
Thank you.
So the one we just did, yes. Next is 14264 Phillips Circle. Mr. Bruce.
My name is Bruce Farnham, and my wife, Ellen, and I have lived at 14264 Phillips Circle on a horse farm for the past 20 years or so. What we are applying for is replacing a railroad tie wall behind our driveway with a Belgard anchor stone cut wall.
Got it.
It brings it up to closer to code, but the wall that exists there is 7 to 8 feet, which is higher than the 6-foot limit. So we'd just like to replace the existing wall with a better wall and avoid tiering because we have 2 major oak trees right behind that wall. Angela has been an incredible help in telling us to provide pictures, to provide all kinds of information. That is a pasture, and we would like the permission to build the 8-foot wall rather than a 6-foot wall. It will
Walls
save
are
2 major trees.
Walls are very expensive propositions.
Yes, they are.
I got to build one about 80 feet long and 16 feet high.
Don't want to do that.
Neither do I.
No. Another thing I might mention is this wall, it is an improvement. The only critters are lovely horses. They're the only ones that can see it.
Okay.
Our neighbors that are in all the adjoining properties can't see it from their houses, and they've all provided letters saying this is something that they agree with doing.
Okay.
So for the sake of the horses' safety and moving forward with a better wall, I'm seeking your approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We gave you a bunch of pictures.
Okay. Question I have for you, Bob. Do you have any problem with this?
I don't.
Mark Law, do you have any problems?
It's a replacement of an existing wall, and it's pretty tight in there, so. And he's going from timber to the stone, which I think is a much better.
As much as I'd like to tell you something you don't want to hear, but you're fine. Go in peace.
Okay, thank you very much.
You still have to go to the BZA meeting.
Pardon?
I said you still have to attend the BZA meeting now, don't forget.
Yes.
Okay.
Next, which I'm assuming since there's so many people here, this is the next one that everybody's waiting for. 12455 Broadwell Road, Mr. Rob Beecham. You're not part of the Beecham clan, are you?
Yes.
I've met you before. I will not hold Steve Beecham against you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Eric Richards. He's Rob Beecham. 606 Devonbrook Drive, Woodstock, Georgia. The person who currently has this subject property under contract. I appreciate your hard work here into the evening hours, your diligent work, even if it is without pay, in what the AJC calls the wealthiest city in Georgia.
I'm going to tell you what, they left me out. They did not pull my house.
Angela, I'm not getting any screen here. Is there something I need to be?
No. What do you need?
I've got a PowerPoint that we just plugged in here that I want to have access to.
Okay.
Screen's dead. Oh, there we are.
There you
Thank
go.
very much.
You got it?
Yeah.
Let me just-
You know, passing those down.
There we are. So with respect to your time, I won't go too far into this. Just introducing the development team here. Rob Beecham, part of the Beecham Group, who, as you have stated, have some understanding of the family. They've been around for 4 generations, building fantastic homes in Atlanta. He is the GC and partner involved with this project. Myself, Dr. Eric Richards, my wife, Laura Richards, we're dwelling development. We've developed some property in Woodstock as well, so this isn't our first time at this. I'm also the owner of CrossFit Silos, the gym across the street here. That's been here for 5 years. So we've placed this property under contract with the plan of building a new home for our gym, our silo studio, as it were. We have a group of 5 other members of the gym who are Milton residents who have joined in and created this group called Friends of Silos, which is the actual group that will be retaining ownership of this final project. So we have architects, placemakers who've been around for years doing work all over the city of Atlanta, and A&R Engineering is our engineering firm. So we're not in an architectural design meeting at this point in time, obviously, but we did want to throw in a couple images here that give you a sense of what our goal is for what our architecture would look like. And of course, that picture is the Milton Public Library. You know, we think that that is a perfect example of what we would like to put there eventually. Once we get through this process. There are 2 buildings, our 2 building pads slated on the current site that we worked with Bob and Angela and the team here at the staff to kind of get this conceptual plan presented. And that other modern farmhouse look is, we would like to see that incorporated into the building that would be fronting Broadwell Road. And so that's where we have this. So our request, our variance request, as you see it in front of you, is we have 2 listed there to reduce the required number of total parking spaces, which was really done to preserve as much possible space in this buffer zone. And then the secondary one, to reduce the required 50-foot undisturbed buffer with the 10-foot improvement down to 30-foot with the 10-foot improvement setback. But we had some new information come to light today, and I'll have Rob actually come up because he had a chance to speak with Bob today about this information.
Thanks, Eric. I'm Rob Beecham. I'm at 243 Sumac Trail in Woodstock, Georgia. Yes, I am related to Steve. Steve and I grew up actually together in Roswell, so I'm a long-time resident of this area. We actually lived down on Birmingham Highway for years, a long time ago, and built in this area. I spoke with Bob earlier today, and Bob, is it my understanding that we are going to, we no longer need
That is
the
correct.
variance for the buffer?
That's
So
correct.
after
The
speaking-
buffer is not required as part of the form-based code. So you'd be just requesting the night of the BZA to withdraw that variance because you don't need it.
Right, so we're officially withdrawing the request for the buffer zone. So we'll kind of look at, so with that information, as a partner in this project, and we're actually planning on building our office. Beecham Group has, been in this area for a long time. Eric is going to have his business there, and we would move our business location. Currently, we're in Alpharetta, downtown Alpharetta, but we love this area. We've got another project here that we're working on with Eric to develop, and with Bob and the group. But what we're showing here are the 2. No, I'm sorry. We'll kind of show the two. We've kind of got a proposed site plan A with a parking variance. So I'll kind of just briefly describe what the parking variance, which is, I believe, the only variance we're asking for now at this point, would allow us to do. There are a number of specimen trees on this property that are absolutely beautiful. Previously, when we understood there was a required 50-foot buffer, it And with the public road, and as you can see, there's a 75-foot buffer and conservation area, it limited greatly the amount of area that could be developed on this property, which impacted the trees. Eric is one of the business owners, and as well as the company. We've done traffic studies, and Eric's been doing business for 5 years across the street, and fortunately, because of the way their members check in, he has historical data that shows 5 years of traffic into his business. So with the requested parking variance, it would actually allow us to preserve more trees, and we would probably, Bob, look at some redesign, a limited redesign to be able to move some buildings, just minor redesign with this new understanding to try to avoid more trees and to preserve the beauty of the project. So our parking, or our proposed Plan A, would allow us to maintain more of a buffer, which we would commit to is to try to stay off the sideline as much as possible. We want to be good stewards. And this is just a closer view, it allows, with gravel parking, with the public road that's being built, we would maintain some buffer zone, and I believe we would try to work around some of these trees and try to preserve those.
Is this the brick house that has the barn to the right of it downhill?
Yes. Does anybody know how to go backwards? There we go. Yes, so so currently, yes, that home is sitting there. If, without the parking variance, we would need to have up to 86 parking spots. And as you can see in the proposed Plan B, which we're not in favor of, but with UDC would require us, would push our parking much closer, if not up to the property line, to the adjacent property. So we feel like it's in the benefit of the community and as business owners. We don't feel like we need the parking, that it would allow us to preserve more buffer between us and the adjacent property on the south, as well as preserve the trees.
First question.
Yes.
On your retail condominiums, is this area left for the same type of parallel parking that we have across the street? I know it's not on here, but
we do have it up and down
question.
The new street that's going in.
Most of the parallel parking in the front on Broadwell.
I'm sorry.
Public Works.
I'm sorry. I was doing the building wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so not Mayfield, Broadwell is out. It's
So
at
you
the
have
bottom of the page. So this is Broadwell, and this is the new extension of McCoss. So this is the extension of McCoss. So we do have parallel here.
But no parallel parking on Broadwell?
No.
Okay. So that brings me the question that I want to ask, and part of the crabapple quote-unquote feel is that we want to have live, walk, and play kind of arena. So is your retail space going to go all the way through that condominium, come out to the front to where you actually have like the vintage pizza and that set of buildings?
It would be retail main condo.
Right, but you could access it from the front, from a sidewalk from the front, walkability?
Retail, yes.
Yes.
Yes, retail,
that was my
yes.
question.
Yeah, retail, yes, and our plans are as basically to have a foyer on the main floor, main level on the backside that the residents would.
Right, so have you made it far enough on the front building to know what the design of the building, I mean, I saw your pictures, but this design of the building in trying to keep in keeping of what the crabapple look might be, and the walkability and the trees and all that stuff that goes in the front?
We haven't gotten to the actual design yet.
Okay.
But, we left enough room and positioned the building in such a way, the code does require that he maintains 50% of the width of the lot with the building so that you have that critical mass along the street.
Okay.
It does require that he has entrances into the retail from Broadwell, so that the code will cover most of the access points and the positioning of the building.
Because really and truly, we don't really have a whole lot of retail on that side of the street. We don't have anything on that side.
Well, there's a hair salon.
Okay. So we'd be an improvement over some of the stuff that's over on that side.
Sure.
So your gravel parking lot, you're doing that, is there a specific purpose other than, I think it's really cool that you're going to do a gravel parking lot, but I'm really curious about your motivation to do such gravel parking lot.
Well, we pick up some pervious credits for our water quality.
Okay.
And when we met with Bob and the team, felt like it was actually part of the character of the city of Milton. And of course,
Well, I think that part's a great idea. Are you going to use like a pea gravel, or is it going to? It's not going to be 57 stone, is it?
no, we'll use what's called a chip slate. So we'll put down a packed base that meets the fire department's, and I don't know what the PSI or the compaction rate is, but we'll put in a base that's required to be able to hold fire trucks. And then we've had a lot of luck with the crushed slate because it's flat and it lays in, and it's not like pea gravel when you walk on it, and it's you can play basketball on it when it's done.
Next question I have for you. In relationship to, I'm sorry I'm asking so many questions, but relationship to fire trucks.
Yes.
And the fire trucks are fairly long, and I'm looking at the radiuses of what you have to turn.
Right.
Have you compensated for the ability for a fire truck to be able to get to all sides of these structures?
Yes, we worked with, I forget his name.
Marietta.
Yeah,
The
so
fire marshal.
He gave us the radius that the engineer worked with.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the public to forgive me that I did not read all the 2 letters that we got in their entirety. I glanced at them. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to, if you got anything else you want to bring up.
This is just here's a photo of the current site. So on the current site, this one, I think it's a garage of some sort, is very close to the south property line. The driveway comes in.
You're talking about the little barn that the tractor guy was in?
Yeah, it's right here. So
I was upset about that, by the way.
Yeah.
I used to be able to drive my tractor over there to get it fixed.
And there's some really beautiful trees, but, when we're looking at an investment standpoint, when we understood that there was...
Are you going to lose those big oaks that are on the front?
We're going to design around them now because, we think there's several we can get around without... if we have the parking variance, it allows us more latitude to dodge trees, basically.
So, Mark, I have a question for you. Those are oaks, right?
That's correct.
What is the lifespan of an oak?
It lives several hundred years left undisturbed. And,
Left undisturbed. Left undisturbed about 250 years?
Pardon me?
200, 250? Okay. How old are these trees?
They're probably, I'm guesstimating on one in my yard, those are probably 150.
Okay.
We're pushing it real close.
The reason that I'm bringing that up is trees, unpleasantly as we may believe, they have a lifespan, and they are very sensitive. When construction goes on around them, I know that I spent on one of my projects probably $25,000 to $40,000 to save 2 Civil War oak trees that died when I didn't even go anywhere near the umbrella of the tree. And so...
But I just want the board to know that any specimen tree like that the applicant does take down, Mark's going to require them to do recompense, and that's very expensive. So you're looking upwards around $100,000 worth of trees if he removes the trees that we have here. So he'd have to replace all these trees on the lot and put them back. And yes, they wouldn't be the same size, but you'd increase the quantity and plenty of penalty financially. So.
When these things come up before us, sometimes property, there's never a good answer that everybody likes, good or bad. Personally, I'd like to see everything stay farms and trees and all the rest. However, unfortunately, it's not my land. With this in mind, one of the things I would like to make sure that you're aware of as a builder is that we have to be in concert with the community as a whole. We have to try to keep in keeping with what our idea, the board's idea is not ours, but the city council and our community citizens, of what we wanted to be able to see. This is just on that side of the road. This is probably the first that's being done outside of our pavilion that some guy designed. But our pavilion, if you take and put this building up, you were able to do it, our pavilion then has purpose of being on that side. So At this point, this is just basically us passing an opinion, I would guess, right? So,
And our request for the parking variance just really gives us more.
just an opinion.
Gives us more latitude for design and saving trees.
Bob, do you really think that the parking issue is a real issue, or do you think that it's something we should stand up and fight for to get? In other words, are we going to gain parking spaces and yet lose a more important factor?
Honestly, I think we have several people from the public here. I'd like to really hear what they have to say, because I'm sure the adjoining community, if they prefer to have a 40-foot buffer that's heavily landscaped and gives them some landscape protection and screening, or if they feel that there's more of a parking issue, I think the applicant would go either way. If we have to put parking in, then he does have the room to put the required parking. And if not, we can ask for a variance. The applicant can ask for a variance and go ahead with that and provide the buffer, 40-foot landscape buffer. So I would like to hear what the audience, the public has to say, to see what their concerns are, and then we can certainly discuss it.
So do you gentlemen have anything else you want to permit?
Yeah, I'll just put that out here now before public input. With the withdrawal of the buffer variance, I assume that the opposition that we were going to face doesn't necessarily have much to say about this other part, but that's okay. Of course, we want to hear it all. My point in saying that is that you hit it perfectly, Bob. We really can go either way. We're not here with this parking variance. This is at this point not a do or don't situation on the project. So,
Well, what we're looking for is that working in concert with our staff to come up with the best product that we can come up with that will add to the community is what we're looking for.
Exactly. And that's what we would like to do with the variance, just allows us more flexibility on project design to stay as far away from and keep as much buffer as possible.
Okay.
Bob, point of a question here before we have public comment. Assuming that, obviously this is just a courtesy, we don't really vote, but assuming that BZA approves or approves the variance for the parking, are we wed to the site plan as designed here, or will we have the option to modify the site plan in future?
We'd be able to modify the site plan. The parking count would still have to stay the same. And if they made it conditional, approval that says you have to maintain a 40-foot buffer,
Okay.
that might be one of the conditions that the BZA might recommend, or the applicant might recommend, or, and then that would stay in there.
And what I would request on that, Bob, is obviously we were prepared to maintain the 40-foot buffer with the original design, but if there is greater benefit of dodging trees in different places, that it may be that not be set in stone, as much as we work with. I mean, there's some really great specimen trees at the front that we really, they're beautiful. I'd love to save them, but with the 40-foot and with the variance requested, we still can't dodge them. So I would prefer to have some flexibility to try to not.
So if the specimen trees becomes an issue, then I think the BZA can make a condition that says that the applicant can work with staff to try to maintain those, the best, to the best of their ability, the specimen trees, and work the design, trying to give some flexibility there. But I'd still like to hear what the public has to say, just to get a feel for what they're looking for.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for public comment. So I would like to do this where we have those in opposition, those are for. I would like to schedule 10 minutes per each side. So whoever would like to come up first, come on down.
You want me to ask Carter if he knows how to work the clock? Carter, do you know how to work the clock? Yeah? Would you mind? Since you're here.
Now I'm going to take it with everybody that's standing up that y'all are in opposition of it.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay? So each of you, since you're standing up, will have to say your names, and are you going to have one spokesman speak for all of you, or, because I can give you 10 minutes as a group.
We're going to split duties probably between or among 2 to 3 speakers.
Okay. All right. When you come to the podium, you have to introduce yourself and say where you live.
Hello, I'm Tamar Fallhaber. I live at 2040 Knightsbridge Way. If he puts the thing up, I can introduce where we all are. Our backyards line up against the subject property, and my property.
You're on the barn side, right?
You're in the
Yes,
Westminster
barn side.
neighborhood?
We're in the Westminster subdivision.
Right, so I know that subdivision well.
And so my property is the furthest. Then comes Tricia McDaniels, and then comes Rich Bauer, and then comes John Bowles, and then we have in the cul-de-sac,
Right.
and then we have other neighbors as well. I've lived here for 21 years. I bought the house, and I was one of the first residents there. Sally Hildebrandt has been in the subdivision just about as long and helped deal with the Crabapple Master Plan. And so I've been very familiar with this whole development and very excited about the property across from us going up and in an organized fashion. And so when this came up and I was looking at what the plan was, I was shocked that this was a commercial property going in what's zoned as T4. What my understanding of the plan was to mimic what was on the other side, and that T4 is supposed to be mostly residential. I'm very careful to read through it, and I'm very curious, and I feel like I don't know what other forum to come to except to come here and ask, how can they put it in a gym where under T4 it's not even an authorized use? I don't understand why he's saying that a 50-foot buffer isn't allowed. And right now, the people who have been in that, we've been there the longest in the subdivision, and we have young kids, and we don't have we have a beautiful site of the garden that used to be there in the barn. And so now we're going to look at a parking lot, and we're going to have young kids running through there, and I'm very concerned about the safety of our kids. I'm very concerned about the security of our backyards in terms of having a public commercial place there. I'm not understanding, and I'm asking you to block this.
Okay. As you bring up each subject, if you don't mind, I'll have questions for our staff. So now Bob, the T4 that's there, what gives the right to be developed as a commercial endeavor?
The T4 is a mixed-use transect. If you look at the T4 over the entire Crabapple area, there are areas of T4 that have residential developments in them.
Right.
Density is 5 units per acre. But it does really encourage a mixture of uses within that transect. So
this specific land does not dictate that it has to be a certain percentage of residential on
that's correct.
that piece of dirt.
It does not dictate how much. The applicant has come in with a mixed use. It's vertically integrated. There's residential above and retail on the ground floor, and then the use in the back is a permitted use for the building proposed in the back. So it's in total compliance with form-based code, and it's exactly what the code is encouraging these properties to build out as.
Okay. Ms. Hildebrandt?
Hi, Sally Hildebrandt, 5115 John Keeler Drive, Alpharetta, Georgia. Thank you. Okay, I'm reading from the code. General urban consists of mixed use, yes, but primary residential. That's not, 3 units is not primarily residential. We all knew this was going to be developed. We had no illusions this was going to be just farmhouses. That's why I worked on the Crabapple Master Plan. So we had a transition of density, that we had a plan to follow. Come to my surprise that City of Milton has changed this, because in the Crabapple Master Plan, the 2 parcels north of us were residential, 2.5 units per acre. then mixed use. It follows exactly what was on the other side. The commercial development does not come down that far south, not right next to 15,000 square foot residential property. There's no transition. I have no problem with the gym further north on Broadwell, closer to the intersection where the heavy commercial use is. But we have no transition. This will really affect our property values and those families that living along that area. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roger Bauer. I live at 2020 Knightsbridge Way in Alpharetta, Georgia. I am to the south of the property adjacent. I'm basically in the center of the southern border of the property, and I would be looking directly at the second building from my backyard. I could appreciate and feel your pain, Ms. Laura, because I filed 2 open records requests to try to get information on this information, and I saw this plan for the first time myself today, just a few minutes ago, so I could empathize where you are. We've only seen a 1-page concept plan to date. We know it's in process, but it gives us a little bit of a hard time to react to something on the fly. So I think that's of concern. But if I had to describe my concerns in an analogy, I would say the current plan attempts to fit 10 pounds of development in a 5-pound sack. When you think of the number of density units that is in the current concept plan, it's roughly 43% higher. So you're talking about fairly high density based on that portion of the parcel that's zoned for T4. I think that is a big concern. 40% fewer parking stalls, and I like Ms. Tamar, I'm a little confused and concerned, and just trying to figure out the curveball that came out of left field, because of the on the agenda it talked about a 50-foot variance, 50-foot buffer going to 30 feet. Now we're hearing there's not so you're kind of getting caught off guard here. One of the things that what has not been mentioned is, there's no fence even proposed in this development whatsoever. And what has not been mentioned is that the hours of this gym open from 6 o'clock in the morning, right? So that is of concern. The light pollution, the noise pollution, as a highly dense sort of development is directly 30, 40, 50, whatever feet directly behind our backyard. So I yield the time to the rest of my colleagues who want to stop.
Hi, I'm Trisha McDaniel. I'm at 2030 Knightsbridge Way, and my property is adjacent to the proposed building on Broadwell. I've lived here since 1972, and I've seen change. Again, change is going to come. We know it. I just want to have a good transition going from Alpharetta into Milton. I walk on that sidewalk every day with my dog. You look across, you see single homes, cluster homes, and then the businesses. That's what I would like to see on that side of Broadwell, too. I think that would be better for being good neighbors of Alpharetta and Milton. I was a first grade teacher and preschool teacher, so I'm very concerned about children's safety. We can't have a fence in our yard because of the undisturbed buffer. So when I take my dog out, it has to be on a leash. My children are out in the yard. I have neighbors with children, and I'm worried about them, going across and getting in a parking lot, and people pulling in early. They're listening to their music and they're, talking on the phone, and somehow, someone gets hit. It upsets me greatly. I just hope that you will take that into consideration, and if this property is developed, that you would have more residential. Thank you.
My name is Jason Tolan. I live at 2000 Knightsbridge Way. I'm not an adjacent property. My yard backs up to Broadwell. I really just want to reiterate the point that we're lacking that transition, right? The images that were shown, we saw the library and we saw the pavilion, and I heard your comments, and I agree with the pictures. I agree with your comments. Let's put a building like that up where they belong, more closer to the Crabapple intersection. Something else that wasn't addressed was, I'll say the parking specifically. If you look at the Crabapple form-based code, there's commentary in there with the designs around here and the need for more parking. So I don't think that a response to reduce parking is adequate, particularly if you consider all well, the walkability, right, of Crabapple and the pavilion and all the great events that Crabapple puts on. I think what we're going to find is a lot of people will find their way to this parking lot, and my specific concern would be that people find their way to the cul-de-sac on Knightsbridge so they could easily cut through Mr. Bauer's yard and into the route, the footpath, I'll say, that will inevitably be created when you reduce that buffer and you provide insufficient parking. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair, we've got about 2.5 minutes left. Do you want to just go ahead and add 10 minutes or so that...
Yes. I want everybody who wants to say something to be heard.
Thank you. That's awful nice. I'm John Bowles. I live at 2010 Knightsbridge Way, and I can reach over and touch the barn. So that's where I am.
I'm still upset about not being able to take my tractor over there.
I understand that. The relationship I had with them was interesting. I sell pickles. So every year I'd take them a dozen jars of pickles and then hope they would look the other way when I went and stole their tomatoes. And we had a wonderful neighborly situation going on there. I, too, expected this to be developed. And I thought that I would be able to look out at nice homes. And as I saw the Broadwell being developed with the transition to family homes and then to businesses, I got excited because I thought it was going to be a nice improvement and an addition to everything that we're doing. My concern now is the access, the easy access to a business. Roger has 3 kids under the age of 6 right now, and there are other young kids in the neighborhood that would have easy access to that. I'm also concerned about, with the lack of parking, our cul-de-sac becoming an auxiliary parking lot and people walking through my yard because there's no wall, no shelter, no fence in between my yard and their yard. I was encouraged, very encouraged by the attention and the care that you pay to making sure that what is being done fits in with other things. When I saw a picture of the gorgeous library and thought, is that what I'm going to look out my back door and see? I don't think that is the intention that you folks have, and I trust that you will be the good neighbor that we want to be. We want to be a good neighbor to whoever develops this. Please be neighborly and treat us the way you would like to be treated.
All of us on the board.
Yes, sir.
And I really know all of us. Over the years of doing this, and I don't know how long I've been on this board, but it's been a bit. It's been a minute. And so I've seen us. For example, we turned down a piece of property that I really thought, and it was turned down because of community unrest about this particular piece of property. At the end of the day, what we could have had as a church ended up being 30 townhouses. And so to that comment, the thing that I would like for everybody to bear in mind is that this is the first shot across the bow of the ship as to what is going to be done or could be done. And so that does not mean that what you see on this piece of paper is exactly what we end up with, and it will not be your only opportunity to be able to have input as to what is actually going to be there. For example, I am with you as a community that whatever the buildings are going to be, my first comment was, are you going to have access to the front of the building for retail on the bottom? Because I wanted to see street access and from that and kind of carry that look over. They're going to have residential at the top. That brings to another problem. This lot is a long, narrow lot with a creek in the back, which makes it relatively more difficult to build on. So rather than try, and I'm not saying I am for or against anything, but rather than cram a lot of houses or townhouses or anything on that side of property, I would like to see us be able to work into something that the community can buy into and that all the needs and concerns that you have in terms of foot traffic. That's the big two things I've heard so far is somebody going across, the dog going across, or whatever it can be. Fencing, quality fencing, can you put fencing in the undisturbed buffer?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can put a quality fencing in the buffer zone, then that may be a solution to that problem. So what really needs to have happen is the community come up with a viable group of plans, things that they would like to see, and try to work with whoever's going to develop this site, whether it be these gentlemen or not. I just don't think that there is a perfect answer. The perfect answer is that Ricky Holcomb would still have his tractor placed there. His sister would still live in the brick house.
And his tomatoes.
And his tomatoes. They're pretty good. So he puts chicken manure on his plants.
And the corn was fabulous.
Yeah, chicken manure do it. So, but the point I'm trying to make is in the perfect world, we would leave our lives unchanged. And we would try to say, because I don't want anybody building anything next to my house, but I unfortunately don't own that land. And I understand, like, for example, the thing when people talk about the city or any municipality, when we come up like form-based code, there is so much about form-based code that I disagreed with personally at the time that we did it, because it did not see that it would be able to be developed out that way because we don't have that kind of control. We don't have control over what the marketplace will buy. We do not have control over those things. We can try to control the architectural control of it. We can control the density of it as we can, but it's not a perfect solution. It would be wonderful if as a municipality, we could buy everything on Broadwell Road, tear everything down that we wanted to tear down, and then go put it back exactly as we'd like to have it as a city and as our community would like it. But that is not within our purview. It's not something as a city that we can, in fact, do. So what I'm trying to get to you guys is this. You have valid points. The problem's going to be is something is going to get built. It's going to get built sooner, going to get built later, but it's going to be built.
Good.
Without bringing to the exact example that I'm talking about, the church versus the townhouses, I can tell you that the things that came up about those arguments were, one of the big arguments was light pollution from the church. One of them was they have lots of people on Sunday. One of them was they have services on Wednesday. That's a lot of people. One of them was traffic. Well, church went away, another facility went away that was minimal traffic impact on a weekly basis to that part. And now there are 30 plus townhouses that have 2 to 3 cars per parcel. And though the light pollution may be different, but the noise pollution is more and the density is denser. And so honestly, I do not know Mr. Beecham or the other people presenting. I know his cousin, which he's kind of a criminal, but he's okay. But so aren't we all? But the point I'm trying to get to you is this. We have a wonderful city architect that will help bring this project to something that you as a community, if you get involved and stay involved, can develop this site to be something that you can be proud of and something you won't mind having next to you. And so the reality of it is that you've got a group of people wanting to build this that has put together an idea. An idea is not the end result. The idea is just the beginning. And so the concerns that everybody has, get them concise to what you really want to do and fight the battle of what you really want. So if safety, walkability, the design of the buildings are important to you. The CrossFit gym, honestly, I didn't even know there was a CrossFit gym across the street because I'm 62 and I'm overweight and I don't go to the CrossFit gym. So
you should try.
I should try. But my point being is that there's all kinds of businesses and things that can be into the community that blend. I agree with you as a community that we need to make this site blend, transition from one place to the other. But by saying the transition, it doesn't mean that you really get more residential versus the commercial part of it. Personally, I think that if you can get a minimal commercial site, that will be less impactful than if you somebody wanted to go in there and build a bunch of townhouses on that site.
Well, but we have no guarantee that CrossFit will be there forever either. Oh boy.
Sorry.
No.
Amber alert. But what I'm trying to tell you is this. This is just the beginning of a design concept. Sure. That's it. And really right now, all you've got is a building on the front that's going to have retail on the bottom, residential on the top, and a CrossFit gym of some sort in the back. The way that building is designed, like, for example, the gravel parking, I think is an incredibly forward-thinking way of doing it. I think that the idea of people walking back from your cul-de-sac over from your subdivision, I think that's great if they want to walk on the sidewalks and walk all the way around. Do I think they should cut through the property? No, I do not. I think that we can.
You think they will?
I think if you didn't make it where it was not fun for them to do, yeah, I think that some kids will do it. I don't think I wouldn't do it. I mean, I'd go back home before I'd have to walk all the way over there. But my point I'm trying to make to you is that have belief in the fact that the staff that works in the city of Milton really does care. The people that vote for this stuff, we really do care. And the fact is, though we can't dictate taste, we cannot dictate exactly what something's going to be. We just can't. And so what we can do is we can try to guide the developer and the builder down a path that will be less offensive to the community around it and actually add to the community versus taken away. So that is what you're going to get when you work with us and you work with our city staff.
Okay, and Roger mentioned that, we saw things tonight for the first time, so it's very difficult for us to stand in opposition to something we don't know much about.
And guess what? It's hard for us to say, yes, go ahead with this without us knowing more detail.
Sure.
The reality is right this minute we're talking about whether it's going to be a 50-foot or a 30-foot undisturbed buffer. And the difference between the 30 and the 50, is that right?
Yeah, they removed that from
We've gone from 50 to 0.
The parking.
I think it's just the number.
Right. So now we're down to parking. So, but guess what? This is a negotiation in plant. These guys want to be there. So it comes down to that they still have to have a landscape plan. They still got to have a building plan.
Okay.
They got to get all that stuff together. And whether it's 30 feet, 50 feet, or nothing, or parking spaces, then it still comes down to design. And once it gets to the place of design, then you get to then you should stand up in arms and make your presentation about what you want to do to affect design. Because the use that they're actually going to use this for is probably one of the minimal impactful traffic/people things that could possibly happen. But, I don't have any idea how many people go to CrossFit. I don't really know.
Well,
12 cars per hour maximum.
Okay. And how many people do you have in your gym?
50 is what we get in a day. That's our daily average.
So at one point in time, how many in a given hour, what is your density of population in your gym?
13 is the most we've ever had.
13 people. Okay. So here's an opportunity that, since they have not really come up with the design of their building, there's the opportunity that building could be designed in a barn-like manner that is similar to that of other things that we do. Right. So if we have a plan that looks beautiful for you to look at, and let's say that you don't really want it blocked off, but let's say that you actually have a place to where you want to be able to walk back through there. There's all these different kinds of opportunities to cooperate. And so I don't want any of y'all walking here thinking that I'm taking up for the developer, because that's not the case. What I am trying to say is to be careful. We should all be careful about what we wish for. We may get it. And so sometimes when we deny things, we get something else we don't want.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Maybe they'll give you a token tomato plant behind it.
Well, now, who said that? You're talking my kind of guy.
So do you want me to call Ricky Holcomb and ask him about his tomato recipe?
Good afternoon. My name is Ollie Garman. I live at 3020 Salisbury, which is not quite at the end of this, just a lot away. And of course, I realize that whatever happens there affects me in the future, just like whatever will be developed there. And my concern in this particular matter has been, I was the president of the Homeowners Association back when we were developing the crabapple plan. And again, my concern is the matter of the transition from residential to commercial. We have no problems with commercial going in. Understand, none of these people do. It's just the kind of and the density of that particular commercial property going in there. How much traffic is it going to have? How much noise is it going to have? And so forth. Many of the things you talked about with the church. But yet at the same time, as someone whose property value is affected, if it is a negative impact on the community, then certainly I would be one of those people that would be opposed to it, as I'm sure it would be if it were built next to your home.
You're absolutely right.
And so we understand that this is a courtesy design, and certainly we will work with, and sir, how do you pronounce your last name? I'm sorry.
Buscemi.
Buscemi. All right. I have.
He might be Italian.
It might be. The Robert threw me off. Roberto, maybe.
Well, he is Roberto.
Okay. But anyway, certainly we have no problems with working with Mr. Buscemi.
Buscemi.
I'll take it.
Buscemi.
We're halfway.
Buscemi.
I'll take it.
Buscemi. Well, it's like my name. It got transliterated.
You just call him Bob.
Okay, Bob. But anyway, we'll be happy to work with you. But understand that one of our concerns is the transition. Not that the fact there's going to be commercial, but the density, the amount of commercial that's going to go in there. And I think that's been very well explained. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
So, Mr. Chair, just to let the public know, the one benefit of the form-based code is that it dictates form and mass and architectural character. And it diminishes the use, because uses will change over time. 5 years from now, maybe the commercial is not working and they want to convert it to a residential use. Maybe they go to another retail use. So uses do change over time, and it's market-driven. But the one thing that won't change is the architectural character of the building. That stays with the building for the life of the building. And in the form-based code, we will make sure that the buildings have the character and have that rustic Milton residential style character. So if you look at like the Brayburn Village, the commercial area, you're driving on the road, and a lot of those buildings really have the character of more towards sort of a residential style building than it does this hardcore commercial that you would see along Crabapple Road. Crabapple Road is a different look and feel. It's a much, more commercial style. And the code does dictate certain architectural characters and styles. So that's why we'll be working with the applicant very closely and the public to make sure that we really maintain those characters. So when you look outside and you're looking or you're walking past it, you'd actually just look at the building rather than the use that's in it. And we're working with the applicant to make sure that we diminish any hard surfaces on the parking, because we want to maintain the look of a nice, soft, like a parking grove, is what it's referred to, is something that's softer, more naturalized, more rustic. So we're really trying to work with that. Now, I do want to tell the public and just remind everybody that the architecture does have to come back. It does come back because
it does come back to
mixed use. It does come back before this board. So you will be notified and see that. And then you'll have a chance to weigh in on that architecture as well. But we'd be more than happy to certainly work with people. Yeah, do we need a little bit more explanation on the buffer? Because the buffer, what happened is, initially I think staff thought that there was a requirement for a buffer. And then we got quite a bit of feedback from the community. So what we did was we reached out to the city attorney and we said, look, is this buffer, let's read it and make sure that we're interpreting this correctly. And the city attorney said, no, you're not. There is no buffer requirement. This use goes right up against the adjoining properties, and there is no buffer requirements in the form-based code. So that's why we notified the applicant and said, look, you don't really have a buffer requirement. So when it started to, the conversation started to say, well, geez, do we want to maintain a buffer anyway? Maybe some of the adjoining property owners would like to see a buffer for screening purposes. And then if so, the reduction of parking would sort of make sense because it would give the applicant some room to put that buffer in. If parking is more of an issue with the community, then we'd concentrate more on trying to maximize. He can get the required parking on the site, and but it would delete a lot of that buffer. And we'd still have some landscaping, but it still wouldn't be as dense as it would have been with like 30, 40 feet. We could really make it quite dense. It is new, and it does take some time to grow, but I mean, over time, it would revegetate and renaturalize. And we have our city arborists that would be helping us create that. And maybe it's a matter of, trying, now the applicant's coming out saying, geez, there's a lot of penalty on removing the existing trees, the existing oaks that are there. And maybe it's a way we can reposition buildings now that we don't have the buffer. Maybe we can maximize the repositioning of the buildings and kind of sneak the parking into little pockets and groves and still achieve the look and maintaining the canopy that's there to the greatest extent possible. At the same time as creating these little pocket groves of parking that are naturalized and making the architecture look very kind of Milton and rustic. And as you can see, what we've done in several of our own applications, we constantly try to keep that look and character of the old Milton. And that's just part of what form-based code is. It's the way Crabapple's getting built out. All of Crabapple will get built out with a very restrictive architectural guidelines and criteria. And the applicant is willing to do a lot of this. I mean, I will say, some applicants come in and just look at me and go, Bob, what's the law? That's what I'm doing. This applicant happens to be very willing to work with the city of Milton and the public and saying, look, what do we need to do? How do we need to fit in? Because they want to be part of the community. They want you to use their services, and they really want to fit in. So most people that come into Milton, honestly, really work very hard to become part of our community. And we, with all our requirements, they have to really put more together and more investment than working in some other areas of Georgia. So in that case, most of these applicants are really willing to listen to the public, and we appreciate you all coming down because we do want to hear what you have to say, and you can speak as well. But I am very concerned about what you're saying and what you need. And as of tonight, I really wanted to kind of get a feel, and the board wants to get a feel for what's your priorities. What are your real concerns? Is it access? Is it seeing the cars? Is it more of a screening? Is it, the architecture that will, we want it to look more residential style and break down the scale? So that's what I was saying. I'd really like to hear from the public because those priorities mean a lot to us and to the board and to the applicant. And we'll try to compile all of those and show them to you as we go through the iterative process of creating this. And like the chairman said, it is a sort of an iterative process where, it's not just one plan. It kind of evolves, and we keep working with the applicant to keep molding the site to get it just right. So we do spend a lot of time doing that. I don't want you to think that they come in, show us a plan, and we just approve it. This takes so long. This applicant has come in so many times, and we're still working with them on trying to manipulate and mold this site. And we haven't even gotten to the architecture yet, which is then going to take a different look and feel of the massing of the building and how that scale looks. And we worked with them very closely with the Public Works Department on the roadway to make that connection, correct, and to make the approach come in right, put some on-street parking, and then to think even when the development to the north gets developed, how do we make that interconnectivity to that development? So we're working with them to make sure that that road has interconnectivity so it kind of loops around and comes up. Because block structure is a big thing in form-based code. We really want to make sure that we get the road interconnectivities correct so that we don't have people stopping at dead ends and having to go drive around. It's sort of a connection. So we really look at everything. We'll be looking at lighting. We'll be looking at landscaping. We're looking at architecture. It's just so much more intense under the form-based code requirements than any other development zoning that you'd experience anywhere else. And all of these items do come into play, and every one of them have a requirement, and they do come back in front of this board, and every member of this board is here, and there are members from this area, and they're all going to be concerned about what this thing is going to look like, and we're going to make sure that we do it right. So I just want to give everybody a level of comfort to know that this will truly be vetted, This will truly be molded and created and developed in such a way that all your concerns are taken into consideration and addressed. The uses and the density are something that is as of right. Those are land rights that the applicant has, and they're dictated in the code. So the density is there, and the uses that are allowed are there. But everything else is into play with form-based code. And that's what really counts. It's the way it really looks. And I just want to give the public that reassurance that we will be working very diligently, collectively, as a city, as a board, as homeowners. We will all be putting our
best foot forward.
Putting sort of our fingerprint on this project to make
Yep.
sure that it is what we need it to be.
I'd like to make one more other comment. On Mid-Broadwell Road, form-based code and what we would have preferred to have as a city, I think the city as a rule, was this particular piece of property to be used for more like what is being proposed here. However, somebody had the money and they came along and they bought that piece of property and they decided that they wanted to have a really nice house where we really think that a commercial endeavor would have been much better for our downtown, our area, than it would have been. So the form-based code worked against what the city really wanted instead of for it. And so, but the citizens have a right. If you got the money and you can buy the land and it's within the given right to do it, we don't have the right to really stand in their way. Now, what we can do in this particular case is just like Bob said, you guys can be a party to exactly how this is going to be built and what it's going to look like, and your opinions, your thoughts, all of it will go into it. Your concerns, all of them, can be brought into. I agree with your statement to go from residential to hard commercial. I think that is a travesty. However, if you make it be a smooth transition that's similar to across the street in terms of look and feel as you transition on over, that might be something that's okay. But again, don't shoot this down publicly until you have time for them to design something that you can really either support or oppose. Yes, ma'am.
I guess one question.
We need to let.
You need to come up to the Ms. Hildbrand.
We just want to make sure that this individual.
He hasn't been heard, so.
Yeah, let him be.
I guess one question is, I get the form-based code. So one of the, is if it's zone T4, you have a table on the form-based code of uses. Allowed uses, allowed by right, allowed by warrant, allowed by use permit. And the gymnasium does not fall under T4. So I guess that's one question.
That's because this use is really just it's a retail use. It's not, a full gymnasium would be something like Alpharetta has across the street that has basketball courts and things like that. That's a full, like gymnasium. This is more, it is legally a retail use. And so they are entitled to put this particular use into the retail use category.
Okay, and though it says it's primarily residential, 3 units covers primarily?
But you can't, the problem is with the way that it's written, it's an evolving process to what that's going to be, whether, for example, we had the same problem over on Highway 9 in Deerfield. You know, we would like to have had retail on the bottom in this particular site and residential above it. The project ended up not getting developed at all because there was not enough demand for the retail portion on that particular piece of property. And so it was tabled and not built. So form-based code, as my understanding is, it allows some flexibility within a municipality for the staff in the city as city council to be able to vote on what that use might be. And so as long as it falls within a general retail value, that's it. Is that my
So even though it
understanding?
says primarily in the code, it doesn't have to be primarily, because the primary in this is commercial.
Okay, I will tell you that section of the code is a very general section, and if you look overall in the form-based code area, the regulatory plan, all the T4s, a lot of them are being built out. They're much larger lots, and they are being built out as 100% residential. So this lot is a very small lot, and it just doesn't have enough land area to really warrant what the purchase price is to put residential. We've had other applicants come in before these applicants, and they've all tried to do the 100% residential, and they just couldn't get it to work. The owner's asking for so much money that it just doesn't warrant 100% residential, so they all walked away from it. So it's all market-driven. It's what the market will drive, but overall, if you do look at crab apples, T4s, they are primarily, percentage-wise, residentially based.
Well, I guess just to a comment on the applicant on the T4, because there is some gray areas there, I do think. And I would be specific in order to help them with this particular property. Gyms can be a lot of things, you're right, and be careful with CrossFit. I'm into the fitness thing myself, so I'm very aware of how that whole CrossFit thing works. Done it myself. And so I think I'd be careful around what the volume is for that area and put a limitation, just to be careful. That would be my suggestion to help the community. Because you only have so much parking, so as it's built right now, that would...
The size of the building
I'd be
and
careful.
parking. Size of the building and size of the parking is going to be what dictates
The applicant's actually asking for less parking than what is required, and having fewer parking spaces, I think, would limit his total occupancy in the building, because he's not going to be able to have more people in there than he has parking spaces for.
If 30 people show up, where are they going to go? What I'm saying is, if the class ends up being big and 30 people show up, then you got to have 30 places to park.
That's why I said if parking is an issue, then we'll talk to the applicant and we'll get the required parking in there, and he'll have it 100% parked. So I just wanted to hear what the priorities were of the community, because either way, we can get it to work. We could put in the required parking.
Right. I just think we need to think through these things, because
he is capable of doing that.
Yeah, I have my business in Alpharetta, and there's been some real big parking issues. So that's all I'm saying.
Let me tell you something. I really believe that parking issues are yet to be really come to fruition in the Crabapple area, and I think that the city's working on a parking deck of some sort and some parking changes. Is that correct?
The city is studying parking very carefully right now. I don't think. There's several options that are out that have been floating. Nothing's been solidified, but they are studying. We hired consultants to, update the master plans, and we're continuously looking at parking and making sure that we have pedestrian connectivity, trails, landscape areas, parks. We're really looking at more than just parking. We're looking at the build-out of the whole downtown Crabapple area as a whole, to make sure that this becomes a work-live-play area. People can truly get around on a bicycle. They can truly cross Crabapple Road. We're implementing all of this. We're implementing new roads. We have in the T-Splost, we have new roads that are being proposed to help with all the intersections and relieve all those choke points that we have now. So it's really, some of the roads are being built as we speak. Others are being done. We have sidewalks. We're bidding sidewalks this week that are going to connect from the Five Corners to the library. So now you'll be able to walk from your development past the pavilion and then down to the library, all with sidewalk.
Hey, Bob, not to interrupt. Is it possible for us to finish the public comment portion?
Yes.
They've been sitting here patiently waiting to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your time. I'm Ben Myers. I live at 2050 Knightsbridge Way, Alpharetta, so I am the southeast property adjacent to this lot. Just wanted to echo kind of my neighbor's comments, but we look forward to kind of working with the board, city architect, and the applicants on trying to develop something that's maybe less obtrusive. And what I mean by that is to kind of bring up the transition is obviously very abrupt in what's been proposed, and potentially architecture is a solution to that. The light and noise pollution of a business like CrossFit, quite interesting. Y'all should become more familiar with it. You're talking 6 a.m. with people running around in the parking lot and lifting weights and grunting and stuff. Be very interesting if that's kind of basically occurring in your backyard. And then obviously the safety aspects that go on here. I've got small children, 2 years old and 5 years old, and certainly don't want them kind of mixing with adults that are doing CrossFit type activities. The other aspect of this that I'll be kind of cognizant of as we go forward is, long-term viability of a business like CrossFit. What happens if that business is not viable and is no longer in this space, and what does that mean in terms of the economic value of this property? Is it something that they can maintain a tenant in if they have maybe minimized parking spaces, and what does that mean in terms of what others would think of this as they're looking for potential operating space in Crabapple? So looking forward to working with you, Bob. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Charles Wang. I live in 1045 Cathedral. I'm nowhere near this development yet. I am in this overall community. Currently, I am a member of the board, and so I certainly understand what it's like to have a thankless job and having to hear a lot of complaints and et cetera. And at the same time, I also put out to the applicant, please do join us in our monthly board meetings to kind of understand that this is a very emotional issue, and certainly I support businesses. I love businesses, and I love Milton. Milton has been an exceptional community. You have something very special. My wife and I, we relocated with our company, UPS, to Georgia about 10, 11 years ago, and I'll tell you right now, my wife very dislikes Georgia. And a lot of times I go home, I tell her, I say, what is it about Georgia you don't like? She says, everything. So I say to her, I say, we still have our home in California. It's in Arcadia near East Pasadena, and if you ever listen to the Beach Boys, you understand the little old lady from old Pasadena. And certainly, just so you know, there is no old ladies in Pasadena anymore. We live on a street that's called Live Oak, and there's not a single live oak tree. We live on a street called Fairview, and there's nothing fair about the view. So when I look at California and I see how developed it gets, and I look at my wife and say, well, what is it about California that you really like? Because you look at Georgia, and it's fabulous. Initially, we lived in Forsyth, and we found ourselves not wanting to be in Forsyth. We wanted to be here. We want to be somewhere it's special, Milton. When you talk about field, you talk about the involvement of the community, you talk about people wanting to support businesses, it's here. Milton has something very special, and certainly I'm not here to tell you all that it's not. It is. And for that matter, I look at how different it is for Milton. I come home and I tell my wife, I say, we have a beautiful fence, but some of our neighbors don't have fences. And sit on the board, I realize the homes, when they were initially built, didn't have fences because it was a fenceless community. You didn't need to keep anyone out. You need not keep anyone in. Your kids played with other neighbors' kids. They just walked across. And I said to my wife, you don't get that in California. You don't. You look at how California is and how developed it is, and you'd say, that is not what you want, right? So I look at it from a perspective of certainly don't want you to think that as a California, I'm a tree hugger, even though I am a little bit. We are cognizant of our neighbors here. Sitting on the board, we get letters from neighbors that are across the street from us on Broadwell and other subdivisions who don't have swimming pools, and they reach out to us and say, hey, is there any way you can let us join your community so we can share pools? And we are cognizant of that, and we, as a board, we talk about that because we say, you know what? We are a community. Community matters. Other people within the community matters. And as with everything else, as we're about to get into this, and it's very emotional. There's a lot of heated debates in our board meetings, and I certainly don't want that because the board's about improving the community just as you approach this scenario. So when I look at this perspective, I'd say, and I go back to my wife, if you look at your daily routines, you come to realize where you live, you love it. You just don't realize it, right? So we look at these mixed-use development, we'll get to like it, but however, everything matters, right? The fence, we'd say, yeah, you could put up a fence, but it matters that we have a fenceless community. Does it matter about parking? Yes, of course it does, right? Because you can't park on Broadwell. And in some ways, we don't want that others to park in our community, but, you know, parking matters. Trees that have been here 150 years, longer than I have been alive, you've been alive. Not saying I want to be the voice of trees, even though I am a California, but trees matter. The buffer zones between the homes and the businesses and communities and the morning, the hours of operations, those matter. And I'm sure we'll approach every one of these meetings as we get closer and coming together, that the community will be involved in understanding what needs to be done. I certainly really appreciate your time, because we're all looking for the right solution, and sometimes the right solution isn't immediately available. But I will tell you, as a resident of California in the same neighborhood since 1979, nothing is recognizable. So when we look at the next 20 years from now, when my kids grow up on Cathedral, even though I'm not a part of that cul-de-sac, it matters to me. It matters to me that I sit on the board and I contribute my time and have a say and talk about the neighborhood involvement of other subdivisions, because that matters. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, 20 minutes is up.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're closing the public comment unless there's anybody with somebody for it might want to speak. But that being said, thank you for participating. And I'd like to ask if we have any new business.
Are there any recommendations that we can?
I'm sorry.
Can we just have a little internal discussion on the board? Just
Yes.
so I could hear some comments of what the board is thinking?
My only comment is that we need to see this project evolve. I don't think that this is such a high-density kind of project that it should be just overlooked. I think a lot of what public opinion is going to be is based on how it's developed out, what the buildings are going to look like, how it's going to affect them in terms of their neighborhood, and I think all those things need to be addressed. But I would ask that we move forward with trying to get this further down the line in terms of a design from just this basic concept of what we have. And I would like to ask the developer and the builder to have a community meeting with the neighborhood that it's going to affect the most, to be able to reach out and get their opinions and try to be a good neighbor in the sense that you really do try to incorporate some of these fears that they have and see what we can do to address them. It is a no-win if the public is unhappy with what's being put there, but the knife cuts both directions. So I would just warn the public that they need to be careful to realize I would love to see us have whatever project's going to be on that site be the less dense it can be. So the less the density, the better. But parking, as everybody knows, is a problem. So I would like to see us move forward. Does anybody else on the board have any comment?
The only comment I really have, and I think we have discussed this ad nauseum, so I won't belabor the point, but I do think that given the variance for the less parking, probably at the end of the day gives the applicant and the neighborhood the most flexibility in terms of the future site plan. I'm not particularly fond of the current where the buildings are placed. I think there's a lot of other opportunities and ways that we can structure how these buildings are put up here to give folks that back up to this neighbor or backed up to this site. If it were me, I'd probably prefer looking at a side of a building as opposed to parking lot, but that's, they should have that conversation. I just think there's a lot of ways that this site plan can be redesigned in a way that is the most aesthetically pleasing, provides for the least amount of impact for those that are near the property or address the property, minimizes the light pollution, but also recognizes that we have someone that's trying to make an investment in our community, that's trying to build a building and grow a business in our community, and making sure that we can make it transitional, but also demonstrate that the use that's there can be used in an appropriate way. So, for me personally, I think that giving the variance that allows for the reduced parking will likely provide the most flexibility for both parties moving forward. And I do, Marty, as your point earlier, strongly encourage the applicant to meet with the neighborhood, meet with them regularly, provide a formal open line of communication, because to the last person's comments, this is a community. We do want to make this right. I have faith that the applicant wants to make this right. So let's work together to get there. I think there's a solution here. Let's just figure out how to do it. So, and like I said, I'll be interested to see what the design of the building looks like and kind of where these buildings are placed on the property when we get there.
I have one additional comment. Light pollution. We now have lighting that will adjust based on use, meaning that a moonlight night is what, 300
lumens?
Lumens, is that right? Mm-hmm. Right. So what I'm trying to say is there's LED lighting that could be placed on this property that would, if somebody's walking through there, the light gradually gets brighter and gets to a brighter light, and as you're not using it, the light is dimmer and it comes down to no more than a moonlit night. And so that would help mitigate the light pollution.
We're very interested in working that way. Our business. A studio at 7 or 7:30 is the latest.
Okay.
It's not a prime
Okay.
function.
And photometrics will be part of the submittal, so the board always gets the chance to see it.
Good.
And we'll make sure that we don't have any, what they call light trespass or spillover light onto the adjoining communities, and certainly nighttime hours, dimming them down.
Any other comment? Okay, then I'm going to close it for the comment.
Okay.
Do we have any new business, Miss Angela?
I have none.
Okay, do we have any old business?
No, sir.
I call this meeting adjourned. The party is over.